Did you know that this antebellum home in Plaquemine, Louisiana was built in 1847 by Dr. Edward Schlatre? Then in 1859, it was purchased by Michael Schlatre Jr. so that he could donate it to an order of nuns to be used as their convent. The Maronite Sisters of the Holy Cross came to Plaquemine 2 years before this donation was made. It was the first mission outside of New Orleans. It was in 1857, and their mission was to establish a school for girls and to teach an already existing school for boys. And once they moved into this mansion, it became known as St. Basil's Academy. During the American Civil War, the sisters were recalled to New Orleans for their safety. When the Union Army occupied Plaquemine, this convent was used for a headquarters for the Federals. Sadly, the house was plundered, and the first level was used to keep their horses, which caused a lot of damage to the original ground floor. When the war ended, the nuns resumed their mission and remained at this site for another 111 years until 1976. So counting the pre-Civil War years, they were here for 114 total years. Next to the convent was a school built that has since been torn down. After a failed attempt to turn this mansion into a restaurant and a guest house, it was vacant for years until 1990, when Louisiana's ex-lieutenant governor, Robert Freeman, bought this house. Mr. Freeman had been a student as a little boy at St. Basil, so this place was special to him. He and his wife, Mary Ann, had it restored as close to the original mansion as they could. In 1859, Michael Schlatre purchased this mansion that included 5 city blocks and several buildings for $7,500. In 2024 money, that's the equivalent of over $280,000. Well, this donation came with 2 stipulations. Number 1 is that the institution be under the direction of the Archbishop, the same as St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church and the School for Boys. And the location for both can be seen from in front of St. Basil's. The second stipulation is that weekly masses be offered for the living and dead members of his family. Now, saying a mass is a form of prayer. Now, many Catholics intercede for the dead in Christ that they believe are going through a final purification before entering into heaven. The nature and the details of that process is really unclear. The name given for it is purgatory. Regardless of what you and I think or believe about purgatory, it's a key piece of information that will help you understand what I'm about to share with you. Michael Schlatre Jr. was born in 1819 on Homestead Plantation of Plaquemine. He was born in a house that was located on this spot where this car dealership now stands. The housing complex for that plantation was sold to make room for this car dealership, and they were sent a few miles down the bayou to replace buildings at Variety Plantation that had been destroyed. Mr. Schlatre was educated as a civil engineer, and he became an expert blacksmith and carpenter. He learned all the practical skills of operating a sugar plantation from working with his father on Homestead Plantation. He eventually became the owner of Enterprise Plantation that was located in this general area along Bayou Jacob. As you can see, sugarcane is still grown here. In 1843, Michael Schlatre married Miss Desibry, and they had 7 children together. Well, in August of 1856, when Mr. Schlatre was 37 years old, his household was on vacation at Last Island in the Gulf of Mexico. It was near the mouth of Bayou Lafourche. Last Island was a favorite summer resort for prominent families during that time period. But while they were there, one of the most disastrous hurricanes ever recorded in Louisiana struck Last Island. The ship that was sent to evacuate the vacationers was blown off course. And when it finally did arrive, it was swept by the wind and beached in the sand, so everybody was stranded. Along with violent winds, the island was completely submerged during the storm underwater. Of the 400 people on the island, about 200 of them died. Sadly, Mr. Schlatre was the only survivor of his family. All 14 members of his household perished. Mr. Schlatre survived by floating for 5 days in the Gulf of Mexico on the wreckage of a broken house. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life from that broken leg. I think that this tragedy is what led him to make such a costly donation and make the stipulation to say weekly masses for his family. I think it was an act of love from a grieving heart. Michael Schlatre later married Miss Kleinpeter and had 11 more children with her. He was an active member and benefactor of St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church. He was a father, a husband, and a well-respected businessman who saw his share of happiness and sorrow. He's laid to rest right here in the St. John Cemetery in Plaquemine, Louisiana. Now you know.